Hey everybody, welcome back to Friends of the Feather. We are here wrapping up our Weirdo Wednesday. If you are wondering who we are, just check out the description box below. It will tell you everything you need to know. If you have any other questions, please feel free to ask. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you 108 subscribers. So, Weirdo Wednesday. I started out with my name, then we talked about my weird trip to the mall. And so then I thought, what are some weird stories that I have? Well, I've done some really dumb things and some really weird things. But there are a couple things that come to mind. So there was this gentleman that I was acquainted with when I was young and really dumb, and this guy was a wanderer. He was a traveling man. He was a spirit of the breeze, we shall say, and never stayed in more than one place, or never stayed in one place for like more than like a month or two maybe. California, Washington State, Texas, Massachusetts, you name it. He was all over the place, right? But this was home. This was where his family was. This is where, well, where his mom was and his sisters. And so this is where he always came back to. And for whatever reason, I was absolutely fascinated with this guy. Fascinated. Just couldn't get enough. Just absolutely enamored, right? So he would come in and he'd contact me and we'd hang out, and then he'd go away, right? And he would go away for weeks, months at a time. Well, there was one time that he'd been gone for a particularly long period of time, right? It had probably been like a year and a half, maybe longer. And he was one of those people where you're just kind of like, well, I wonder whatever happened. And so I was very young. My mom would not let me borrow the car. I'm not sure what was going on, but there was one evening that I had promised to meet my friends, and then my mom wouldn't let me borrow the car. So I got angry, and the place where I was supposed to meet my friends was probably like a mile from my house, maybe a mile and a half. Okay, maybe 2 miles, maybe 2 or 3. But anyway, it wasn't that far, but it was along the highway. Well, my mother did not know this, but I was probably 17, 18, somewhere around in there. Oh no, it had to have been 18. Yeah, I had to have been 18. Anyway, so I took off walking and decided that I was going to walk to this destination where I was supposed to meet my friends. So I take off walking down this major state highway, and I'm walking by myself. I have no weapons, of course. I'm 18 years old. This is like a major intersection for an interstate highway and a state highway, right? So lots of transients come through. We had lots of hitchhikers. This was so long ago. Hitchhiking was still a thing. I guess it still is, but you know, Ubers didn't exist. And so I'm walking, and I see this, like, across the road, I can see that there's somebody walking in the opposite direction. And it looks like this giant person, right? And I'm like, okay, so just keep your head down, you know, don't look, you know, don't make eye contact, just stay to yourself. And then this person crosses the street, crosses the road in front of me. It's a 4-lane highway, crosses in front of me. And he's coming towards me. And I was like, okay, this is going to be awkward, but it's going to be alright. Just stay calm and keep walking, you know, you'll be fine. And so I'm walking, head down, you know, not really looking up, just watching where I'm going, you know, just looking up enough to watch where I'm going. And I look up, and he's standing right in front of me, and it's the dude. It's my infatuation. And he had just hitchhiked back to this town that we lived in, and he had just, like, seriously, like, the guy had just let him out of his vehicle at the gas station right up the road on the highway, and he had come in from California, and I ran into him because my mom wouldn't let me borrow the car, and I was supposed to meet my friends, and I was stubborn and decided to walk. I ran into him, which was pretty amazing. Weird, right? I always thought that was really weird. I'm like, that is just so bizarre that he would be coming into town as anyway, that was weird. That was a weird story that happened to me. That's a true story. And then another really weird one is there's a lot of this is a very big river town, and there was a lot of like train traffic and stuff. So there's a lot of old train tracks and a lot of old train tunnels, because not only were there lots of trains, we live in the mountains, well, kind of the rolling mountains, and so there were lots of train tunnels. So there is one in particular that myself and my friends used to like to frequent. It's now a state park, which is lovely because you can ride your bike out through there, and it's really cool. But it's this really big train tunnel that's like out in the middle of the woods, and you can walk to it, you can walk through it. There's a lot of water there, but it's absolutely beautiful and fascinating. There's an old tunnel that they tried when they tried to re-bore the tunnel, I think, or they were trying to reinforce an existing tunnel, and it collapsed on a bunch of workers, and it is still there. They never got the workers out because it was too dangerous to get them out. That themselves and all of the equipment was buried, and like at one point in time you could go back in that tunnel. There was just like a hole exposed that you could slide down into, and there may have been 20 or 30 feet of extremely deep and mushy mud that you could walk out into, and then it turned into a giant lake. Well, it wasn't a giant lake, it was like a tunnel lake, because it was just the very top of the old tunnel. It was very eerie, very scary. I'd been in there one time, maybe twice. No, it was just one time. And that was quite enough for me. But one time we were out there hanging out, and it was me, and I was probably with like 7 people, because this was back in the day when you didn't have anything to do but go out and get into mischief. So there was probably about 7 of us. We were going to build a bonfire and sit around, and I'm sure we were going to drink. But the men folk, there were 4 ladies and the rest guys, and the men folk had taken off in the only vehicle and decided, because we were in this giant Suburban, we used to just pack around in one vehicle. It was, oh god, such a riot. Anyway, the men folk had decided to go off and collect firewood, and the lady folk stayed back at the camp. And so we were sitting there, and there was this giant rock right outside the entrance of this tunnel, and we were sitting there and just chit-chatting and everything, and we had a little bit of like kindling and, you know, some little sticks, and we were trying to get a fire started. Well, we heard this rumbling at the other end of the tunnel, and I was just like, what is that? And it started getting louder, right? And it just kept getting louder and louder and louder, and then we started seeing this light coming through the tunnel. Well, this was like an old train tunnel, but the train trestles and all the tracks and everything had been taken up. So there were no longer trains running through it. But this, whatever it was, started through at the other end of the tunnel, and we could hear it, and it sounded like a train. It was rumbling. It sounded like thunder coming out of that tunnel, and we were just like, holy crap, what are we going to do? Because we didn't know where the menfolk were. They were far long gone as far as we knew, and we were there by ourselves, just four ladies, 4 teenage ladies hanging out in the middle of the woods. And so gets louder, gets louder, gets louder. It's coming towards, it's getting closer. And so finally we see that it is this group of men on an old Jeep Wrangler, and it was like a rag top, and they had the top off of it, and they were frog gigging. I don't know if you are familiar with frog gigging, but it is where you take this trident and you go out in the middle of the woods and look for mud puddles with bullfrogs or other frogs, and you stab them and collect them for play or for food, I guess. You could collect your frog legs. But so these guys come out of this tunnel in this vehicle. We thought for sure that we were going to die. And they stopped and asked us if we needed any help. And there were probably, it was the dead of summer, and there were probably 6 or 7 guys hanging off of this vehicle. And they were all like shirtless and dirty and gross looking. And I was like, oh my God, no, we're good, thanks. The men will be back any moment. The big burly menfolk, the Sasquatch-like menfolk, they will be back anytime now. Just, we're good. And they're like, all right. And they carried on, didn't bother us at all. But it was really funny and really weird, because it was, now it's a state park and you can't drive where the tracks used to be. But those were that was back in the good old days when you could drive out through there, and yeah, good times. All right, insignificant, dumb, kind of weird, I guess. I don't know. Funny, maybe. Whatever. Entertaining, hopefully. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed Weirdo Wednesday. We're going to close up here for tonight. My neighbors are looking at me like I'm insane. Probably with good reason. And I hope everyone had a great Wednesday. Have a very happy Thursday. We'll be back tomorrow morning with another jam-packed episode. Tomorrow is a Thursday, Thirsty Thursday. We're going to talk about food and fitness. And yeah, it's going to be fun. Thank you again for watching. Have a good night. Bye-bye, guys.